Hello everybody, Jose Rodriguez here. I'm back with some more film photography chit chat. I have a stack of pictures. These are my very oldest photographs that I made when I was a teenager, still living in Los Angeles and about to enter into military service. I got drafted in 67 and I took my Exacta, I believe it was the Exacta 2, with me to Fort Ord, California. And this is what I used. And soon after that, my dad bought me a Yashica twinless reflex, which was actually pretty good because at that time, 6x6 negatives were considered quite large and able to produce some beautifully smooth, grainless, which I didn't really like that much, large prints. Now, my enlarger that I had at the time was a very simple enlarger. Instead of using a condenser type head, it used a diffuser head, which was basically a piece of diffuse kind of opal glass. And very simple lens. In fact, it didn't even have an iris. It had a little disc with holes of different diameters to simulate the f-stops. But I was able to use that to create a lot of these prints that you will see in a couple of minutes. But I want to update you on the carts that I mentioned that I ordered from China. It were only like $30 including shipping. And yeah, they don't work. They are not recognized. You get the red X. I partially filled one with yellow and popped it in. And I tried to fool the printer by removing the refillable cards from Precision Colors that I was currently using. And then I reinstalled my OEM cards. They were recognized. They were read at the correct levels. I turned the printer off and I pulled a plug for about 10 minutes, plugged it back in, turned it back on, and then I installed the one yellow cart. They're over there. I'm not going to bend over and get them. But yeah, got the red X. So either once you have used any other type of cartridge in that P800, you are basically screwed. And unless someone comes up with a drastic change or a drastic type of chip that will be accepted, that is it as far as I'm concerned for the time being anyway. All right, so let's go back to my early years. And I'm just going to quickly go through these because there's just too many and I don't want to keep you guys glued to your screen too long. If I recall, I remember my lens of my enlarger was horrible. I think it was only like a double element type lens, a dual element type lens instead of the multi-element lenses that were used in the more expensive enlargers, which I didn't get until I was maybe, I would say about 6-7 years into the Army, and I bought that Bessler 6x6 or 6x9 actually capacity. But here is I used to, let me preface this by saying that I used to, at the age, the ripe old age of 16, 17, I would hop on the bus and go downtown LA to some of the worst areas of town on my own. Here was this pale looking Puerto Rican kid, running around the area with my camera pointing it at people. I had a 135 millimeter Vivitar 3.5 telephoto lens for my Exacta. And remember, I had to use that with the through the lens type prism from above, waist level type prism. So you would be able to sort of fake if you held it vertically, to be able to take a shot like this. And I would get away with these types of shots. I don't know if you can see, it's exposed for the highlights. I didn't know a lot about exposure. I had a hand meter. There was no way that I could, take a close-up hand meter reading off of this woman's face. She was about maybe 50 feet away from me. And so I would just guess a lot. And this was my learning process through the early years. As you can see, there's no detail on her eyes at all. It's just black. And this is printed on some sort of cotobromide matte paper back in the day. This is all silver fiber-based paper that was not the RC type. You had to wash this for hours. Here is one on the glossy version, which is not ferrotype. This is a little, one of my little neighbors next door near me in LA. And cute, freckly face. You can see how wonderful the tonalities are in these old papers. There's just nothing that can even come close to that nowadays. Next to me, in the same house that I originally lived in with my grandmother, because I told my mom and dad at age 11 that I wanted to move to California. And I nagged them for over a year, and they finally sent me to live with grandma. And then they followed a year later, or less than a year later. They rented their house in Puerto Rico to the famous German, I forget what their names were, but they had an act with a lion and a tiger. They're very famous. So they rented our house for over a year. And that lion lived in my room. But anyway, enough of that. Next to us, I lived with my grandmother in this one house right across from a school. And right next to it was a house that was actually for sale. And when my parents came, they bought that house. And then my grandma moved away, and this Mexican family moved in, and they had two boys that I kind of gravitated toward and kind of played football with them and had a great time. I always had an affinity for kids and loved to work with them. I became a junior scout leader back then as well. But anyway, this is one of the kids next door, and this tonality is fantastic. I mean, there's nothing that I can come close to using any of the papers that are available today. I just cannot come close to this. And if I recall, this is very fine grained, probably plus X on my Exacta camera. And let me show you how good that detail is. And I was able to print this on that super crappy enlarger. Later on, when I went into the Army, I started using our local craft shop, which was located in the base. And I was able to then utilize better equipment. This is MacArthur Park in Los Angeles. And it's just a shot of the one of the ponds with nice swan swimming across. If I had known a little bit more about composition, I would have cropped this bright area here because it's very distracting. But anyway, that's some of my early work. I just want to quickly share it with you guys. San Francisco Bay. So this was my first, what they call a permanent party station. I went to Letterman General Hospital in San Francisco at the Presidio. And this is, my barracks was within walking distance, maybe 50 feet away from the bay. And this is what I got to see every day. Here's a shot of a kid walking down the beach. And I used to go to picnics. There's a bunch of ladies getting all the food ready. And again, the blacks on this particular paper, and I think it's Cotobrome or Cotobromide. This is the real fiber-based paper with a super deep black, a lot of silver content. The RC papers that came later on did not have the high silver content. And, Kodak attempted, and some other companies attempted to bring that look back. And by that point, people were so used to the convenience of RC papers that it really didn't do very well except for the really hardcore photographers. This is the Alamo. My next assignment was in Fort Sam Houston, Texas, in San Antonio. And this is more of a matte type Kodak paper. This is all I ever used. In the clinic that I worked at, we had a young man that was a guitarist, and took a quick shot of him. My nurse realized that I love photography so much, and when the opportunity came up, she was a colonel. She contacted the company commander, and they actually changed my specialty from, I was originally an occupational therapy technician, and I became a photographer, a real Army photographer. That was my first year in the Army of 22 years. And so that's what I did for the rest of the 21 years at that point. And the company commander had the power of God with his pen. That's all he had to do was change my specialty to photography. In Milwaukee, Wisconsin, this is on our many trips back home with my wife. I've already married now. And I got to go to see the Barnum and Bailey Circus train trip, and they would stop in Milwaukee and bring the elephants out of the animal cars and do a little demonstration. This was shot with a Yashica 6x6, and you could tell that because it is so smooth. The graduations are so smooth and the tonalities. And again, this is a beautiful silver-based matte paper from Kodak. Very nice. My little neighbors again. This is with a weird pebbly type finished silver paper. You can see how dark and contrasty they are. You got to remember that papers came in grades 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And so depending on the contrast of the negative, you would choose a matching contrast paper. And later on, we had the multi-grade papers, which require filtration. Just a single box of paper gave you 5 different contrast ranges. This is the same kid's brother, the older brother, setting up our Lionel train set at my house. This is a tower, an old windmill in one of the parks in Los Angeles. I really forget where it was, but the clouds were just striking. And I was still learning about exposure, so I managed to underexpose, and the tower of the windmill is missing the actual wind fan or whatever you call it. And the sky, I exposed for the sky and managed to get that. This is again Kodak matte type surface paper. A canoe in the bay, San Francisco. These are all kind of mixed up. This is Palace of Fine Arts in San Francisco. This is where my wife and I, when we were dating, would go and spend a bit of time there while we were off. And it's a gorgeous place. If you look it up online, you will see how gorgeous it is. It looks kind of like an old Greek type structure. To diminish the effect of erosion at the bay, they piled up this humongous rocks, just piles of these rocks. And kids love to climb and explore. Nobody cared about dangerous activities back then, apparently. You let your kids do whatever they wanted to. Same here. Here's a young kid just messing around. There's some steps here. You can go up to the shore in the bay. Here's again my little neighbor eating a sandwich. This is back, you got to remember, this is like probably 1964, 65. And again, the blacks are just tremendous on these. The way I used to wash these was on a tray with water 10 minutes at a time, and then change the water until I got about an hour's worth of washing. And that way you could save on water instead of running the faucet continuously. That was quite a waste of water, and my parents would not let me run the water bill that high, so I couldn't do that. Now what happens a lot, and I mentioned this in a prior video, is the silvering effect. This is happening right here. You can see that it's getting lighter here. It will begin around the edges and work its way inward, and it's quite prominent. The tarnish is going away. The silver that is normally black is turning back to shiny silver, and that's what happens. Now, I was very much anti-smoking, and I took this picture. For you smokers, I'm sorry, I apologize. A picture of an ashtray, really filthy, with some cigarettes burning, and kind of get the point across. I actually entered this in some sort of early high school contest and maybe won something. Here's just a shot of grass. I used to go around and just shoot anything, the most mundane things, and my goal was to try to get the exposure correctly, try to get the focus correctly, all the technical aspects correctly. It didn't really matter to me whether it was a trash can or a field of just dried up weeds. I don't even know where this was. This may have been in San Francisco, but I cannot tell you. And I just was awestruck by the structure. And again, 35 millimeter, you can see the grain here in the plain sky. The detail is quite good. And of course, remember, this was with an older 1950 probably era, maybe 1949 Exacta, with a very cheap Tessar lens back in the day. Here are my little neighbors. We were just set up a piece of a plank of plywood, and we were just running our looks like a fire truck right down the ramp. I was probably about 14, 15 years old back then. And again, these little kids, there weren't any kids my age in my streets, so all of the little kids just gravitated toward me. And I used to always take pictures of them, and they loved them, and I would make them for the parents. And again, this is a good glossy coat of bromide paper, very high in silver content. It's silvering a little bit around here, you can see. And it's beginning to deteriorate a little bit, but it's still hanging in there. The blacks are incredible. This was my dog, and I went through several dogs. And of course, they would get out of the house and unfortunately get hit by cars. And well, what are you going to do? I was very irresponsible 14, 15-year-old. I caught this old man sleeping in a park bench at, I believe that was also MacArthur Park. Got this church steeple with a dove just flying into it. And I believe that was maybe, 35 millimeters. There's a lot of grain in there. San Francisco Bay, a gentleman fishing. He's actually lighting up, and he's hoping to catch something. Not working very hard at it. San Francisco is known for its street musicians. These were the hippie days back then, so I was there in the upper 60s. You can see he's just in heaven playing. This is at my high school. This is after I graduated from high school. On one of my leaves, I came home and I went to a football game. I think I took those kids to see a real high school football game, and they absolutely loved it. This is Kodak matte again, Kodak bromide matte. This is a couple of rhinos at the LA Zoo. And again, this is all 35 millimeter. And I'm sad to say that I cannot locate these negatives. I have no clue where they have gone. This used to be a lot brighter. What happens also is that your highlights begin to come down. It's almost as if they are darkening on their own, and I don't know what causes that. Maybe one of you guys with a lot more experience than me can tell me. But this used to be a lot brighter. The kid next door eating a crumbled bag of pretzels or chips. I don't know what it was. But again, and this was done with 35 millimeter. Yep. Quite good considering. And when I say I used to shoot mundane things, I found an old rusty, almost completely dilapidated barrel, 55-gallon barrel. I just took a picture of it. And this is an example of how we used to crop. You place the 11 by 14 paper in the easel and adjust the arms until you get the crop that you want, and the rest just gets covered up. And then you would trim it off. And there was none of this, I have to maintain my film negative ratio, 1 to, I think it was 1 to 1.5 or 2 to 3. And this is my wife. This is her first baby, Judy, who's 44, going on to 45 in about 2 more months. The mother of Nathan. And this is my young wife back then. Again, this is silvering pretty badly here. I can see it. It also turns a little bit brownish with time. And again, all of this could be basically eliminated by really, really washing well. But then you still have to protect these prints. Either stick them in a box or something that will not affect the surface. If you're going to put them in an album, usually album pages are horrible and they tend to fade your prints even faster. This is my baby Judy having a gay old time on the swing. Again, this is downtown San Antonio. We were up in the Needle. My friends and I, when I went to my advanced training there after basic training, we got 1 day of leave to go down, or pass to go downtown on our own. And I took the opportunity to get up there. And again, this is with 35 millimeter, and it's not that bad. Now I printed this on a better enlarger at the craft shop on base, and it's not bad at all. Very sharp. You learn to work with what you had. I didn't have the first good camera until I went to Korea years and years later. A pair of little girls that lived down the street, I told them to get together, and I snapped this picture of them. Again, just simple stuff. This is what I used to do when I was coming up in my early to late teens before I got drafted in the Army. This is us down at the LA River, which would actually get flooded with water sometimes. If you guys know the LA area, there's a artificially man-made river, and usually is so dry you can drive on it. And you've seen it in movies quite a bit being used. Usually the further areas down, further south. But I lived right across the mountains where Dodger Stadium, the ball stadium, is located. And that was a park up there. And I lived right across from the freeway in a little place called Elysian Valley. And that's where I went to high school as well. I went to high school in John Marshall High School, which is the high school that Judge Ito of the famous O.J. Simpson trial, he graduated from there, and also Leonardo DiCaprio. This was located actually very close to Hollywood, so a lot of the actors' children and rich people that lived in that area went to my high school. Of course, we were not rich; we were the poor compared to those other kids. But it was kind of a weird kind of prep school, and I originally majored in music and didn't really follow it. I got drafted within a year and a half of leaving high school, and I was attending Los Angeles Junior College, and I didn't have enough credits to get a deferment, so I went into the Army, which was the thing to do, I guess, for me, since I really didn't have any idea what I wanted to become other than a photographer, and I really thought I would never have the opportunity to achieve a position in photography in the Army. So I went to occupational therapy school and became a technician. I worked for about a year helping Vietnam wounded, and our hospital was the amputee center for the Army, so we helped rehabilitate amputees from the Vietnam War. So that's it. The next video I'm going to go back to the computer and try to do a comprehensive pair of videos. Actually, one will be for Photoshop, and I've done sort of the same thing before, but this time is going to be a little bit more detail so that everybody kind of gets it. And I'll do one for Photoshop, and I'll do part 2 will be for Lightroom, and you will also be able to see me using the soft proofing method, and I'll tell you a little bit about color spaces and that type of thing. All right, thank you once again. We are about 30 subscribers from the 5,000 mark, so I can't wait. Maybe by tomorrow or the next day we'll do a little celebratory video, and I will thank all of you at that point. All right, I will thank you all now for what you have done for the channel so far. I have another box of prints over there, but they're a little bit newer. They're more around the 80s, 1980s range when I was in Belgium. So, and also in other areas, but I got to look at them and see what it is that I have. All right, so thank you once again. Don't forget to subscribe, click on that little bell, share and like, and until the next time, happy printing. We'll see you at the computer in the next video. Bye-bye.